Hi everybody and welcome back, and as you can see I am joined today by the lovely Nathan Taylor, aka Sockmatician.
Hello.
So this is number 2 of Cuppa with Claire.
I love being number 2.
You are number 2. The lovely Gabby Young from Gabadashry was my number 1 person. Fabulous. She is fabulous, fabulous Gabby. And the idea of the game is as and when I can grasp a crafty celeb, I'm going to sit down with them and have a cuppa.
If I find any, I'll let you know.
You are a crafty celeb, come on.
I'm crafty, certainly.
You are,
Wily.
as am I. Yes, wily and crafty. So I have a cuppa.
I have my version of a cuppa. I don't drink tea or coffee.
Oh,
I do drink hot chocolate. That's the hot chocolate.
I could have made you one of those.
I know, it's fine. I'm not precious about it. I'm just going to drink a bit of water.
That's fine, no worries. So Nathan has been teaching with me, or not with me. I don't teach with Nathan. I can't teach knitting.
We were in the same room.
We were in the same room at my studio here at BTHQ, and Nathan has just finished his second demystifying double knitting class of the day. So we've sent home all of our lovely students, and they are
There's like 12
masters
new
of the
double knitters.
art of double knitting.
Art of double knitting.
I have learnt one thing I never knew about Nathan, and that is he is very heavy on puns and terrible jokes, and when you have to hear them twice in one day.
Claire knows this, you clearly don't. We did have 2 ladies who wanted to sort of stick around for the second class so that they could just hone the skills and practice and go home a little bit further on with the project that we'd started. And I did say to them, I'm so sorry, you're going to hear all the same jokes trotted out at all the same places, and they're not going to be any better.
One of them went for a walk, didn't she? Came back.
I don't want to hear that.
They were terrible though. What was that one about eyesight?
Brilliant. Oh, that's not even my joke. That's Tim Vine, conjunctivitis.com. There's a site for sore eyes.
It's terrible. But one of the things that I noticed through listening, now I didn't take the class, I must say.
You took the first half of the first one, but then you had to go off and do other things.
I didn't have to go off and do other things.
I got abandoned.
I couldn't do it.
Oh, honestly, yeah. Your brain was in other places.
The on thing.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah, and I was pleased I've kind of got that. I need to sit down and do it again. But no, I didn't do the actual class. It's been quite nice actually. I've been here today, and it's been the first day I've had 2 classes on. I had pattern drafting next door, which is also very head hurty. And I haven't taught anything, which was weird.
How did they get on? Was that one class throughout the whole day?
It's a whole weekend, so they're back tomorrow.
Gosh,
it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
They will be pretty intense. But it was really interesting to listen to Nathan teach, because although I teach crochet and you teach knitting, although I can knit, I don't teach knitting. My knitting teacher Carol, who was here this morning actually, on your class. She teaches all the knitting, and I don't think I'm ever going to be at a level where I can teach knitting. But
it's really interesting you say that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine says you only have to be 1 page ahead of them in the textbook.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that's enough.
I'm 2 pages ahead. I can say that with crochet. It's true with crochet, because there are things in crochet that I can't do. And I say I can't do them. If I actually sat down and read the textbook, I could do it. I just haven't done it yet. Yeah. But yeah, I can get my beginners quite far on their crochet journey, but they will hit a point where I can't teach them anymore.
Well, I've been asked by a couple of places if I will provide a brioche class. I can brioche. I don't feel I'm an expert in brioche. No. And I don't think that's fair on people who are, for me, I mean, you are an expert on crochet, no matter what you're saying. You do a lot of crochet.
I would say I'm an expert in getting people up and running.
But you know a lot about it. Even if you don't teach to a hugely advanced level, you know it. You know the craft. You know what you're talking about. Whereas I can brioche. I wouldn't say at all an expert in it.
I think you've got to do an awful lot of it, haven't you?
Whereas double knitting for me, it's my wheelhouse. It's where it's my home domain. I'm properly on home turf, and I know that any question that someone's going to have, slightly off topic or not, I'm going to have the answer, rather than, oh, I don't know, I'll just try and find that out.
And I'm like that with crochet, and this is the thing that interested me when you, as people were making mistakes, you were enjoying people making those mistakes, because it gave you the opportunity to teach them how to fix a mistake that where they'd gone wrong. And I find that, but I've learned more teaching techniques over time. So I'll take my beginner's crochet course as an example. sometimes when people pull their yarn through, they end up with 2 loops on their hook, and it's really stiff, and it won't go anywhere, and it won't move, and they're like, what have I done?
They've brought another one from the row below with them. Yeah.
Or they've gone in, and I call it diving, so they've gone in too deep, and they've dived down, and they've pulled through a scrap of yarn. Like
when I was in Ibiza. You don't know this story.
How is this related to crochet?
Where is this going? Right, I'll tell you where. We went on a little boat cruise.
Yeah.
And we anchored up in the middle of the deep ocean so we could just take it off the back of the boat. Swim. And there was one girl who dove off the top of the boat, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be out jumped. I'm going to go up there as well. She was only young. I thought, she's a child. I'm going to fight the big man. So I went up. I'm terrified of heights. Really terrified. I was looking down. It was really scary. I'm also a lot heavier than she was.
And taller.
And taller. So my head was higher. So I probably jumped about 20 feet into the water, plus the 6 of me. Because I'm heavy, I went in further than she did. Yeah. And I went into a layer that she didn't dive into, which was a layer of jellyfish.
Oh!
So be careful with your crochet. God, don't dive too deep. You might get stung by jellyfish.
Did you have to get weed over?
No. Joey from Friends wasn't there. No, actually, Ben's mum, my husband's mum, who was there with us, she hadn't gone into the boat. And I came out and I had a sting all the way across here on my hand and down my leg. I got out of the boat, not in a panic, but I didn't know how serious it was going to get.
And also, I suppose the more you flail around, the more you're going to get
stung. As soon as I got to the top, I was fine. So she had in her handbag this ointment which says, suitable for jellyfish. I don't even know.
Maybe she dreamt it, maybe she
Wasp
knew.
ease. This is for bee stings, but it also works on jellyfish.
Well, that's good.
I'm so sorry for that story.
No, that's fine. It's
but
yeah, so
diving in too far.
I've learned that.
Problems.
Why people do that, why that happens, and I've now learnt how to rectify it.
Yeah.
So I can now teach that whenever it happens. I'll go, oh, ladies, so-and-so has done such and such. You might find this happens to you.
And the first time you saw it in a class, you will have gone, oh, now I have to, and now I can fix, I can do this.
Yeah.
But you're thinking on the hoof that first time, the second time you're prepared for
and I would say it probably took a good 2 years of teaching the same beginner's class over and over again to learn all of the mistakes and where everyone can possibly go wrong. So now if someone has an issue, I can normally give them a solution to it. And so and I'm sure your double knitting course has evolved with time. Although you give the same spiel at the beginning over and over again, same jokes, same analogies, and you can probably do it with your eyes shut, or even in your sleep, which I can too. It's once the class actually starts and people start doing it and making them the mistakes that you can actually properly teach. 3 or 4 weekends ago I was in Northern Ireland and I heard this brilliant phrase which I've now been using all the time. You see more when you get lost. Yeah, because you have to open your eyes. Exactly. If you stray from the path, you don't just see what's on the path, you see all of this stuff, and then you're trying to find the path. You're looking actually in a more focused way once you're lost because you're trying to get back onto the path. I like that. And it's such a simple concept. You see more when you get lost. I've learned much more from my own mistakes in knitting than I ever have from my triumphs, but I also learn a lot from other people's mistakes, and so do the other people in the class. So I always... People who've taken a class with me will probably have heard me say this before because I trot out the same lines all the time. Let's point and laugh. Exactly. So, if you're sitting there and you've made a mistake, don't just suffer in silence. Raise your hand because we all want the opportunity to point and laugh at you. But genuinely, it's an opportunity that we can all benefit from that mistake and me showing people how to fix it. What I want people to go home with is a sense of invulnerability with their knitting and not be frightened to make mistakes. Isn't it interesting though that I think you teach in a very, very, very similar style to me, really? And some of the things that you'd mentioned about writing patterns and things and wanting to write it on your terms and not necessarily how patterns should be written, I am exactly the same. But I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is probably because you're self-taught and I'm self-taught. Yes. So with the double knitting, you, as you say, your story, you saw it, you loved it, you wanted to do it. No one would teach you, you had to go and research it. I am not a qualified teacher. I have never done a course in my life. I am completely and utterly self-taught. But what I can therefore teach people is how not to make the mistakes that I have made. And I also know that if they make the mistakes, I can teach them how to rectify it because I've had to do it myself.
You're doing it from your own experience.
Definitely.
I'm not teaching from a book.
Nope.
I'm teaching from what I've learnt.
Yeah.
And what I've learnt as a knitter, not as a teacher.
Yeah.
Also, as you've said, as the class has evolved, yes, I'm learning from my experience as a teacher as well, but I didn't go in with any experience like that. That's had to come. One of the things I talk about in my forthcoming book, which is it's a beginner's knitting manual aimed specifically at men, published by Haynes, and it's really interesting because I say I can only teach you what I've learned. I'm not going to sit there and teach you something that is outside my field of experience, because then
or comfort zone.
No, exactly.
Because you said about not teaching brioche, so I'm exactly the same. You've met Madison today. She's our advanced. I keep doing this. It's really annoying. She's our advanced dressmaking teacher, and the reason we have her on board is not because I can't do the things that she does, but because I actually don't want to. Yeah. That doesn't float my boat. Yeah. I like making...
She loves it and she's passionate about it.
I love making basic, simple dresses, simple garments, basic stuff that is quick to make, easy to make, simple to make, fits good, looks good. I'm done there. Yeah. When it comes to designing ball gowns, wedding dresses, pattern drafting, tailoring and all of that, it's incredibly clever. Doesn't float my boat.
But you saw how... Because you've seen it twice today. When I'm talking about what double knitting is and can be, how fired up I get. Yeah. I get genuine.
Passionate about it.
It's exactly that, because that's not fake. That's not the actor in me.
And I'm the same. I'm passionate about the fact that crochet does not have to be hard. No. I get so
double
bloody cross
doesn't have to be hard.
when people say, "Oh, I can't do it," and I'm like, "You can't do it because you haven't learned." You haven't learned my way.
Yeah, exactly.
but without being big-headed, I've never, ever, ever, ever had a single person come to me to learn to crochet and not be able to do it. No. They might not enjoy it. It might not float their boat.
Yeah.
But they can all blooming well do it.
I'm exactly the same with double knitting. There are varying levels of excellence. Yeah. You know, some people will get further within a 3-hour class than other people. And
I mean, to be honest, to be fair, you actually only knit probably for an hour and a bit. Really, once you've gone through all of your explanation.
There's a lot of background to this class, but again, that's one of the things that I explore this in the book as well. When I was learning to knit, I was taught the basics, and some things in knitting are kind of hard when it's new to you. Now, as I've gone on as a knitter, I've learned other tips and tricks which are making my knitting life easier and more convenient. So I'm starting to think, how much easier would it have been if I'd known some of those tips at the beginning? But people don't teach them to you because it's not the basics. No. But if it makes your job easier, so when I try to teach, I give people so much background so that they've got knowledge sloshing around in their head before they even do that. Yeah.
I don't even, when I teach people to crochet, I don't teach in the same way that anybody else teaches, probably anywhere. Right. My course is totally and utterly bespoke, and it does give you, it hands it to you on a plate to begin with, and then I take you back and do all the tricky stuff. Right. So I give them a bit of crochet. Right. I teach them how to do the stitch and hold the hook and yarn, get crocheting, and once they're like, actually I can blooming well do this, then I take them back and get them working into the foundation chain and doing all the fiddly bit, and that's the bit where people, they'll start, they'll crochet, they'll do it.
Cast on is often really, really tricky. Yeah.
But how did your grandma teach you to knit? Oh, not that your grandma did teach you to knit, but
it was my mum.
I bet they cast on for you and they handed you the needles.
I genuinely can't remember. You're probably right. Yeah. I can't remember. And it's really hard because if you're learning at home, there's no one to do that for you. So if you're learning from YouTube or if you're learning from a book, there isn't anyone to cast on for you. So you do have to start with that. So there's different situations, I think, will give rise to different necessities of teaching style. That's a really, really interesting question, because I know that we talked about this earlier, some of the people struggle with the cast on, which is why I always say, don't worry about this cast on. It's not actually part of the class, it's just a useful foundation. So let's go through this, and if you're struggling, you can practice this at home. I'll finish the cast on, which is exactly what you've just said. I'll hand you the work ready to go. But if they are, you never know what level of skill you're going to get.
Quite often, if once they've actually mastered the knitting part, the cast on becomes a lot easier because they've already understood what the yarn is supposed to do and where it goes. And that's where... And everyone says, oh, why should I pay you, Claire, to learn online? I can just learn on YouTube. But when you learn on YouTube, you don't get a kit sent through the post with your bit of crochet already done for you, do you? So, you know, that's what they're paying for. They're paying for some poor person that I've paid proper money to sit there and crochet little blocks of crochet.
You don't do those yourself?
Well, no, when we first launched it, oh gosh, it was 2 years ago now almost. I got all of my regular ladies, they all came in and they all sat and they all crocheted all the little blocks and they worked out how many hours they'd crocheted, and I gave them class credits to the value of real money. So they were paid and they then came and did different classes with me. And so yeah, they're the ones who've crocheted all those little bits.
That's the sort of thing. I really like the barter system.
Yeah, I do.
Because ready money is sometimes, you know, cash flow is sometimes pretty difficult. We all live pretty much hand to mouth, particularly if you work in the fibercraft community. Unless you're Stephen West, you know, who's literally floated to the top of the tree
all the time,
and
taking Instagram pictures of himself with cats.
But unless you've reached those dizzy heights, which let's face it, I haven't.
But you can do.
Oh, you can. It's all out there, but until you get there, you kind of live in a hand-to-mouth sort of way. So actually this barter system is like, I've got something that you can benefit from, you've got something that I can benefit from, we can share that.
Well, Gabby and I did it. Gabby admits that she hasn't got a pot to pee in, bless her. You know, she's a musician and you know that industry. But, you know, I wanted to get her on my podcast, I wanted to get her on my channel, I wanted to get to know her a little bit better, and I said to her, and it's no secret, come down, I'll teach you how to make a project bag, because she'd been saying she didn't have any. And if you make a project bag, bring some of your fabrics, we'll have a nice day sewing, and then we'll spend the end of the day just having a little chat to camera. And we did. So yeah.
My dad was saying years ago, he went to this guy who's a builder neighbour friend and said, would you do some work in my helping with the conservatory? And the guy said, yeah, of course. And then when it came to sort of talk about price, my dad said, what money do you want? And the guy said, I don't want your money. And I said, what do you mean? You just do all this work. He said, give me 2 weeks of your time. So the man built a conservatory, and my dad then went to his warehouse and did some stock take and some manual labour. And my dad was perfectly happy to do that because he couldn't really afford to build a conservatory. The guy got useful labour out of it, and the world goes round.
You met Viv this morning, didn't you? And you said about spreadsheets, and she said, "Yeah, I love them. I hate spreadsheets."
She said you always come to her with anything
if ever I need a spreadsheet, I say Viv, and she does my spreadsheets for me. She fixes all the mistakes and everything else. She tells me how long she's spent, and she gets class credit in return. So, which is fabulous.
Love that.
So yeah, I do a lot of bartering. So even my babysitting, I've got one of my good friends from school. She comes and does a couple of hours babysitting for me, and I'll do a couple of hours babysitting for her.
Oh yeah, that's
and it works really well. Lovely. So it's good.
What I found really interesting today is sort of having to censor myself, knowing that there was someone in the room, not just you, but the other two as well, who had just done the class. I sort of felt not censor myself. Be aware of what I've already said, and be aware that someone is still in the room and will benefit if I say something else.
Again.
Well, both. Say it again, but also I kind of deliberately put in a couple of different anecdotes, a couple of different tips and things that I'd learnt along the way, because
I suppose as well, you want to be careful. You don't want to give them too much in that second class that you didn't give them in the first class, because they think, hang on a minute, I paid for your class and they've got extra.
They didn't get some of the others. Because it's a finite amount of time.
Every class is different.
I can only give so many bad jokes in 1 3-hour session.
You give more than enough, Nathan.
No such thing. Do you know what? There was I love puns so much. I used to live in East Barnet.
Yeah.
The Barnet Herald was running a pun competition, and I thought, this is right up my street. And I wrote 10 absolutely new fantastic wordplay jokes. No, just generally about all sorts of things. And I sent off 10 entries. I was convinced that one of them would have a chance of winning. Unfortunately, no pun intended.
Oh my god. I think we'll call it a day there. Thank you so much for joining me, Nathan. It has been an absolute pleasure spending the day with you, and I'm sure the viewers will have enjoyed your
pun.
It has been pun. Bye.
Bye.
That's fucking awful.